If someone brought me into a company and was like, make this sexy, I don't believe that sexy is the only way to go about it. I think the reason that I have personally gone the creative route is because going the creative route has the same emotional effect as going the sexy route.
At Active Life, we believe that the healthcare clinic of the future is the gym.
Everybody starts with the best case scenario in mind.
Never sell anything to anybody who is not in the market for what you have.
The only reason we work out is to create the opportunity to recover.
And the healthcare provider of the future is the coach.
And this is why you guys need to get paid well, because what you're doing is really, really hard work.
Sarah Weikart, welcome to the Active Life podcast.
Sean, thank you.
You're welcome. You're somebody whose stuff I've been following, obviously, for a long time. We've known this. I followed you when you became a one-on-one client is when you started kind of standing out to me. Because usually when people become one-on-one clients and they post about what they're doing with us, they post a photo or a video of them doing the workout, and then it's like, Active Life RX squats today. You almost, it felt almost like you had planned everything that you were going to do around documenting your journey of working with us as a one-on-one client. And then I started digging into it more, realized that you have a marketing background, that you're extremely good at it. And obviously that just got me more and more interested. So my first question to you is, when did you realize that you really had a love for marketing?
It was when my husband and I started our own local business. It was a side business. And we were just doing everything very scrappy. We didn't have any money to hire any marketing. And I didn't even know the first thing about who I would hire. So it started with social media. Then I had to write the posts for social media. Then it was paying attention to my husband, teach our classes, making sure that we were constantly fine-tuning the product so that it made sense to the customer. Then we bought a camera and started taking photos. So it was just a spiral effect. And then we started realizing a couple years in, So then we started realizing that we were spending more time actually focusing on producing all of this content than we were on the product that we were selling itself. So I think at first, I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to do it. I just knew that I was good at it. And then as we started spending more and more time and coming up with more and more ideas and spending our weekends going to the CrossFit gym to do photo shoots, I think that's when it clicked for me that I had just accidentally come into this arena where I potentially could turn it into something.
How long ago was that?
By 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. So you had no premonition prior that I might be really good at this marketing thing.
No, I had never, graduating high school, I didn't go to college. I didn't have anybody who really told me, guided me like, hey, I think you'd be good at this. I just waitress, bartended, did all these different jobs. So I never really had any idea what even was out there or what kinds of careers existed. So I would have never been able to figure that out unless I accidentally stumbled into it.
Well, I'm happy that you stumbled into it. One of the things
I am too.
One of the things that we've discussed in the past is what I believe to be your unique genius. And I want to talk about it for a second. I want you to unpack for people kind of how that happens. And the unique genius that I've told you I believe you have is that where most people are really happy to get to 95%, they show up, the set looks appropriate, everybody who's there is prepared to do what they're supposed to do, and the lighting is right, you have the right camera person, camera people. Most people stop there. You are the person who says, if we can get that last 5%, this will be 100% better. And The last 5% are things like we need to add some props to the room. We need to change the angle that we're shooting this at. We need to shoot this from 2 different angles and go at it back and forth to get the effect that we're looking for. All of these little things that take a lot of extra planning, a lot of extra attention, that I think are very easy for people to say, it's really good without that. We don't need all of that. And it's the pursuit of that extra 5% that you do naturally that I think makes things 100% better. And I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
So when you first said that, it was a lot for me to wrap my head around because I never thought of it like that. Because for me, it's just what you said, it's natural. So I guess when I look around at what everybody's doing with marketing, their companies, there's areas within businesses where following protocol or following the standard you should be doing. Website layouts, sales pages. There's an expectation from the customer when they land there. They expect to see certain things, and I don't necessarily think you should try and be different there. And then there's areas of creativity, showcasing something just a little bit different. I think that's where most people stop, and it's either because they can't see it, or it is that last 5% really does take so much. It does take so much more time. And so just an example would be taking a studio photo. So my husband and I go to our studio all the time to take photos. And in the beginning, I have this idea in my head. And sometimes it's something I've gotten from Pinterest. Sometimes it's something I created from my mind. But it's only when I'm in the studio, sometimes the original shot just totally isn't working. And then I'll look around and I'll see a wheelbarrow and I'm like, oh, that orange wheelbarrow might look good. And then we have to put a blanket into the wheelbarrow so it doesn't mess up my black outfit. And then my husband has to help me get in the wheelbarrow. And then he has to, like all of these things, that's that extra 5%. And that's what makes something totally different. And we always have to remember that people are emotional beings. We're visual. We want to have that visually compelling experience. And so if we can, when we do something even remotely different from what other people are doing, that's the exact thing that stops people in their tracks to at least notice what we're doing and stop long enough to potentially keep going farther into the journey that we're taking them on.
So I want to dig into that a little bit more. First, last night I was explaining to Kimberly, my wife, that she came into the office and she's like, your desk is in the wrong place. And she moved my desk to a different wall. She's like, we need to get something to cover these windows. It's too bright in here during the day and it's too dark at night. And you need better lighting in here. I said, okay. She's like, you need to put something on the wall behind. I'm like, I get it. Just fucking do it. Can you just do it? And so we started talking about you, because I started saying, like, when Sarah was here, she was also saying, like, this office needs zhuzhing, like the whole suite needs to be more inspirational looking. And I said, and I was explaining to her that I've tried to tell her about the 5% difference that you pursue and the 100% difference that it makes. And I was explaining to her that a really good example, because I couldn't explain it to her extremely well before, was if Sarah came in to decorate the office, she would be asking, what's the budget? Because she would want to put electric outlets in places so that there were no extension cords necessary for anything. She would be making sure that we looked at what the camera looked like when I sat at the desk with the wall behind me, and we would be setting everything up so that that was the number one thing that was important, not if there's a coffee table that's appropriately lined up with the couch. We'll throw the coffee table and the couch out if the other stuff doesn't work. And that made a lot of sense to her. And so when I'm speaking to you about that, I want to think about gyms who are going to be listening to this, gym owners and coaches who are listening to this. The 95% is bringing a good photographer in to shoot a list of photos that you want to have that you stage to put on your website and on your social media. What is the extra 5% for somebody who wants to capture imagery that is going to speak to someone in the marketplace that lets them know you can come to this gym and it's going to be different?
I'm trying to think about what the common photos look like. So I remember, so the majority of the photos I've always seen from, and we did CrossFit for a really long time, so I'm going to use CrossFit as the example. They would bring photographers in, usually to take photos of competitions or days where the workouts were something exciting, like snatches and muscle ups. So then the photos that got posted were typically of people who could do full squat snatches and muscle ups. And it was typically the younger crowd. And they would just highlight just like the fittest, youngest people in the room. So if I were a gym owner, and the first thing you always have to do is think about who is your ideal client. Who are you actually trying to bring to the gym? If you're trying to bring the young, fit college student into your gym, you're going to want to take, no matter what the photos look like, no matter what the angle looks like, those are the photos that you want, right? But if you're trying to bring in a mom of 3 kids, you have to start understanding what this mom's life looks like and then figure out how to take photos of that. So if we're using her as the example, and she's postpartum, she's had 3 kids, maybe she doesn't always know what to do with the kids when she goes to the gym, or maybe she hasn't worked out for a while, so she's really intimidated. So start taking photos of, okay, someone hasn't worked out for a really long time. Should we have a picture of a heavy squat snatch? No. What about showing photos of someone doing a dumbbell movement at a weight that would actually make sense for someone coming into the gym? And then once the workout's done, what if we take a picture of her toddler coming up to her and giving her a high five? Right? This mom is an example to her children. Her children might be at the gym watching her. That's a big thing for her because she wants her kids seeing that she's living a healthy lifestyle, because that's what she's trying to duplicate onto their lifestyle. So just starting to really think about, what is this person actually feeling? What is intimidating to them? What movements can they absolutely not do? So you don't want to be showing them things that they can't do. And then on the other end, they are looking for inspiration. Sorry, my internet connection. I'm like pausing whenever I see the button. So for the inspiration element, show imagery of a fitter mom of 3 kids who is 3 years, 5 years ahead. And then to really pair that all together, you have to also tell the story with the photo. So you take the photo, and then in your copy, you tell the story, but tell the real story so this person can actually understand what the encompassing purpose of the photo is, not just to take a photo to post a photo.
Would you recommend writing the story first and then taking the photos to match the story, or taking the photos and then writing the story to match them?
I always write the story first and then figure out what the imagery will be.
What's the reason for that?
Okay, so to give you an idea, so yesterday when you and I were talking, and you were telling me about the rolling the dice and how you were gonna pick 7 and I was gonna pick 2, and the reason you were picking 7 was not just based on it being your favorite number. There was some actual strategy behind it, right?
Can I give some context to this?
Yes.
All right. So what we were talking about yesterday will be a podcast in itself. We were talking about luck. And what I was explaining to Sarah was that the way I view luck is it certainly exists. And we have the opportunity to create as much of it as we can. And a lot of people don't necessarily know that they have the opportunity to do that. So an example would be if you go to the craps table, or if you're just rolling 2 dice, 2 die. I don't know how you're supposed to say that. But anyway, you're rolling 2 of those things and a room full of people gets to choose a number that they think it's going to land on. If you understand that the odds are in favor of it landing on 7 most frequently, and you choose 7 every time, and somebody else has no idea that there are odds that exist and they just choose a random number each time, then you will appear more lucky than they are when the number of rolls ends up being that you got it right more often than anybody else. But the reality is you did get lucky, but you put yourself in a position to get lucky more often. That's the dice. I'll look that up later.
Dice.
Yeah.
So yeah, and while you were saying that, my mind wrote down, I was like, ooh, that would be a great photo shoot to do for our gym owner and coaching clients, because we can tell that story, and then you just take the imagery and you pair it together. So the reason that I always choose writing the story first before doing the imagery is because it comes natural. I don't know if it's the right or wrong answer. It's what I've always done. Because, and it's not to say that you can't do it the other way, but again, for me, when I'm thinking about a business and I'm thinking about who is their client, it always starts with who is their client. And then it starts with, okay, based on what I know about this client, what is their journey? Where are they in life? How old are they? What does their lifestyle look like? What do they drive? What does their day look like? What is their career? All of these factors. Then I create the stories about them. And then it's just 10 times easier to create the imagery, because for me, it's one of the final steps, not the first.
Well, I think the reason that you just spoke to makes a lot of sense. If we didn't plan, let's say that we're going to do a shoot where we talk about, we're all just rolling the dice. How often are you going to hit? If that became the campaign that we ran with, we'd have to write that out before we decided that where do we want to shoot this? What props do we want to have? Do we want to bring, a pair of die? That's going to bother me. We can't talk about that anymore. To the shoot. If we just showed up and said, all right, let's get a bunch of photographs. No one's bringing dice. Why would you bring dice? It's a fitness gym owner shoot. What are you bringing dice for? So I'm with you. I think that writing the story is important first, and that goes into that 5% of planning, or intentional planning of what it is. How do you do things that are different enough to stand out and similar enough to be understood at the same time? So I'll give you an example. We talked about the mom in the gym. If a gym ran a campaign that was aiming at moms locally, and all of their Instagram stuff and Facebook stuff was moms dropping their kids off at school, moms going to work and being powerful executives at their job place, moms doing creative things in their home, and moms, all the things that are aspirational for the mom who they're trying to attract. And they didn't show them in the gym. People would be like, who's the company putting these ads out? How do you do enough of one and bring it back to the other?
So a lot of that is always going to come between the proper pairing of the imagery with the copy. So sometimes you can bring clarity in your caption. So let's say you have a photo and there's space on the left side of the photo. That's great for putting in words. Sometimes that's enough to have a good headline that creates clarity from the very beginning. Oftentimes the first line of your post. So this is a really important one. The first line of your post that you ever post is very, very important for people to understand whether or not that post is for them. So you're not always necessarily relying on the photo, the imagery itself. And so I'll give an example. So I was talking to my husband the other day, and I was like, I really want to do a marketing photo shoot in our studio. And I want to have the environment to be similar to a movie director, because I view marketing very similar to what a movie director does. But if I buy director props, how am I going to tie that together? So let's say I took a photo in the studio, I'm sitting in a director's chair. So then I would be let's say I'm posting that on Instagram. I'd be very strategic about my headline. And I would say something like, marketing is I can't come up with anything good on the top of my head, but like, marketing is the same thing as being a movie director. Well, now people know I'm talking about marketing. They saw the director's chair, but then they're like, wait, what does she mean by that? And then they'll keep reading the post. So you just have to, it's never about the single thing. It's always, if you're thinking about a sales funnel, if you're thinking about, you have to think about from start to finish, what is the end goal of the thing you're creating? And then you build the story through it. And then at the end, the imagery paired with the copy and the journey you just took this person on shouldn't be confusing to the person looking at it.
One of the things that I think you've pointed out to me that is a really good way for people to do it is the idea of aspirational vision, imagery, music, language. It doesn't have to do anything with the brand. And then the video can end with the brand. And a really good example of that we were talking about yesterday actually was one of the gyms who we work with, which is formerly TrueFit, now Lift in Detroit, Michigan, or Bloomfield, Michigan. And they had a video where it was a woman playing with her, working out in the gym, playing with her kids, doing all these different things together that were showing how this becomes this, how this makes you better at this, how this makes this more enjoyable. And it ended with her cheersing with a friend at a barbecue. And then the last maybe 2 seconds was a fade in of the logo of the gym. And it all tied it back in. I think that kind of stuff, especially in the fitness space, is refreshing because people are used to another shot of somebody lifting heavy weight, another shot of somebody who looks nothing like me doing something that I don't think I can do. And we forget this when we're in the gym because we're surrounded by people doing things that other people can't do. But it's the people who don't believe that they can do it who we want to attract so that they can one day do it. At least that's what inspires me to go find people.
And on the video note, so I love transitioning. So if you're making a video, you could have a few seconds in the beginning that shows the outcome. So the woman playing with her child, then it goes into the gym aspect, and then it ends again. So it's like you're almost sandwiching it so that from the very beginning they saw the gym or the lifestyle that comes from them being in the gym, and then they end it with the lifestyle from what happens from being in the gym. So if you can sandwich it, that also helps tell the full story. Another example is the one that you showed me from Rogue, and it was the grandfather working out in his
that wasn't Rogue. That was a health insurance company or something from Germany.
Why did I think it was Rogue? So
because it should have been.
But in this right. So in this video, this grandfather is like going to his shed, and he is moving things around, making room in his shed. His wife is like, "What is he doing?" And for several months, he's in there, and he's starts to pick up this kettlebell, but he only does it he can barely get it up. And then he progresses through it, and you're like, what is this guy doing? And at the very end of the video, he goes to his son's house, and he picks up his granddaughter, and he lifts her up so she can put what is it called that goes on the top of the tree?
I'm Jewish.
Puts the decor that sits on. I've barely ever owned a Christmas tree, so I'm like, whatever it's called. So, and that was such a fantastic story because it showed the point. What was the reason, the end goal of him doing the thing that he was doing? And so especially for Active Life, being a one-on-one client myself for 2 years, I always, in my mind, when I've been doing a lot of my work, especially when my back was at its worst, I could no longer do the fitness that I wanted to do. I could no longer compete in the sport that I was competing in. And I would find myself doing my workouts, which they're not always just incredibly inspiring. Like, you just have to do them. It's what you have to do. And I would always find myself in my head reimagining myself being back on the competition floor. And I'm like, there's no way I'm the only person thinking about this while I'm going through this process. So it's just like showing the end goal. What is the desired outcome? What is this person fighting for? What do they care about? So if you can just put all of that into the imagery, that does tell the story, shows the work, it shows the outcome.
Well, let's stay there for a second then, because I find that when we think about the person who we serve at Active Life, while I think a lot of other coaching companies, gyms, whatever have you, would like to say that, oh, we're doing that too. We're bridging the gap between fitness and healthcare too. The most non-invasive client that we would have would most likely be the most invasive client for most of those other coaching businesses. Meaning, if somebody came to one of the other coaching businesses and said, hey, I want to get fit and these are my problems, it would be an outlier for them. Do you follow me there?
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to market fitness because fitness is sexy. It's people and it's women in sports bras. It's guys with their shirt off. It's even if it's people who are aspirational fitness, like, you know, the not as fit yet. It's showing them doing things that are achieving for them and realistic when they watch. Like, oh, I could one day swing a kettlebell like that. And that's exciting. We can't use that the same way in our marketing. At least I don't think that we can. I'll leave that to you. But because it's not, that to me is selling the top experience that we offer. It's selling the everything is the dream, when the reality is most of it is the work that leads to the dream. So we need to be able to make the stuff that you just described, pair it with something sexy. You follow?
Yes, but so I don't believe that if someone brought me into a company and was like, make this sexy, I don't believe that sexy is the only way to go about it. I think the reason that I have personally gone the creative route is because going the creative route has the same emotional effect as going the sexy route.
What's the difference?
And the reason I never went the sexy route. Okay, so.
And when I say, because maybe I should clarify what I mean by sexy. Sexy is exciting. In what I'm describing, they're synonymous. I'm not thinking like sexually sexy. I'm thinking this content is exciting and inspirational. And one of the things that I've always struggled with, because
so then same page there.
Okay, fair enough. So, you know, and then to go back a second, and we'll come back to the sexy in a minute. What's interesting is you and I both agree that video of the older man holding his granddaughter up to put the thing on the tree was an amazing piece of marketing. And neither one of us know who produced it.
Yes.
Neither one of us know who produced it. I can't name the company and you can't name the company. Which to me,
I totally thought
it was definitely not Rogue. It was definitely a company out of Europe.
I know.
I'm fairly certain it was
I'm
German.
like so annoyed that I didn't.
Most of the people listening to this have probably seen the ad. Hopefully we can get the editors of the podcast to drop the ad into the clip in the show notes. Remind me to have them do that, please.
Okay.
But that speaks to lack of consistency. It speaks to a glimmer of incredible and then just like, all right, we did it. And then you're done. Where if that company, and I'm sure that they're more successful than we are, given that they're producing 6-figure videos as a singular ad for 3 minutes, and we're not doing that yet. It speaks to me of an idea and not a commitment. Do you follow me there?
For what they did.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Because I would love to know who that company is. That's a message I want to get behind, but I'm not going to go online and look it up and be like, oh, let me see if I can buy what they're selling. But if I constantly saw that stuff, I'd be all about it. She's nodding. For those of you just listening and not watching, she's nodding in agreement.
Yeah, I'm a great pauser. I'm good at pausing and not saying things. I'm thinking.
But so how consistent do you get with that? Because the concern is the whole grid on Instagram, the whole Facebook feed ends up being old dude putting kid on a tree, and you're like, all right, it's not Christmas. And I'm not 78, 80 years old. This doesn't relate to me.
The answer to that question is, do you have people on your team who can create fresh ideas consistently and tell stories well? So that company, I don't know what they did, but we don't know that they didn't hire an agency. And they were like, hey, we really want to do, like, just crush this Black Friday this year, or our Christmas sale, right? Maybe they hired a contractor for one time who had a great creative mind. And then that was it. They hit their goal, and you never know what happened with the company. They could have lost good team members and then had to go back kind of to what they were doing before. And it just kind of got swept under the rug.
It's
so in
sad.
terms of being consistent, it just depends on what the priority is.
Right. But like, to me, and maybe this is part of my problem. That's sad, because to me, when Game of Thrones was really good, the show, I mean, in the end, I don't think it was so good. We can debate that for another show if you watched it. But when it was really good, I wasn't ever at the end of an episode like, oh man, I wish that was 30 minutes shorter. I wanted more. And I think it would be so amazing if marketing content was all so good that people were like, oh, I wish there was more of that. I wish I could watch more of that. That's where I would like us to go as a company, so that when people tune into what we're doing, they're like, no, that's cool shit. I like what I would watch their stuff just to watch their stuff. And I think that if more companies did that, the whole landscape would be much cooler, much more enjoyable.
It's like going back to the whole, how do you take something like Active Life and sexify it and make it look inspiring and appealing? And I think everybody wants to do this. The difficult part is that it is highly complex. It's the 5% you were talking about before. Like, all of us can get to the 95, but it's that last 5% that actually produces what we're talking about. And it's incredibly complex to come up with. You have to take somebody has to have the idea to begin with. Then they have to be able to transfer that idea into something tangible. Then they have to explain it to everyone else to get them on the same page when they may not have the same vision in their head. Then you have to put all the plans together. So it is a complex thing to pull off. But I think the reason that, so when my husband and I started our first company, it was not sexy. So we taught our local community how to be safe and efficient firearms handlers and shooters. But we didn't do it with real weapons. We did it with dry fire. And that wasn't a sexy thing to sell. And so you have to show the end goal of these people, protecting their families and being the household, the dream outcome for them. And I forgot about the point that I was making.
Well, you're talking about making something that is fairly benign into something that's very interesting and inspiring.
Right. So you have to find these creative ways to do that. And the creative ways they're going to be really, hold on, my internet connection.
You're good on my end.
Those creative ways are going to be, they're going to require props. They're going to require setup. They're going to require taking people completely out of their daily lives. Like, just think total Hollywood. You have to go total Hollywood to make things look and feel inspiring to people. because that's what we like to see. It's taking us into, this is not our daily life. This is not waking up, making coffee, getting the kids ready for school, like all these mundane tasks we do on a daily basis. Well, why do we go to the movies on Friday night? Why do we go see James Bond? It's because they've taken us somewhere else, to this place that we want to get to, that we can feel. We have to do that within our businesses, and we have to create that imagery.
How do you do that without it being cost prohibitive? Because I mean, you described that you need a props, you need a set, you need all these different things. I'm thinking from the perspective of a single coach who has a business online and is making $4,000 a month. And I'm thinking about the gym owner who is making, let's say, $20,000 to $25,000 a month. They have some cash stocked away, but the last thing that they want to do is blow $5,000, $10,000 on a marketing campaign that they have no idea how to execute. And then be like, all right, well, we made a really cool video and we're broke.
I wouldn't start with video personally, because when you make a really sick video, it's just one video. So if you're going to go the video route, like, you better have a very planned out strategy for that video that's bringing in leads so that you can sell them. So if I were being scrappy, and when we were building our business, we never ever paid a professional videographer. What we did is photos, because photos, you can get so many more photos and then spread them out throughout the next 6 months, year. So in order of how to be creative, I mean, just an example. So we created it was a grip strength program, like downloadable PDF, like a couple years ago. And we did this photo shoot that we were going to put all those photos on Instagram, and then the call to action would be to go purchase the grip strength. We took different photos. So one of the photos that everybody was like, this was a fantastic photo. My husband got a ladder, went to the top of the rope at the CrossFit gym, right? So just a really, really long rope. And I'm at the bottom of the rope and I'm just looking up. And the reason people love that photo was because usually when you're taking a picture of someone climbing a rope or doing pull-ups on a rope to work on their grip, it's from the same like level view. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're all used to. Or it's like a little bit angled from down to up and you're watching this person climb this rope. We went the opposite effect. And so what it did is people were like, that's how small I feel when I'm climbing that rope. Or if I was doing a kettlebell swing over my head, my husband climbed to the top of the pull-up rig, and he was like up there, and it was super unsafe and terrifying because I'm like, please don't drop our camera. And he took the photo from that view.
Hold on a second.
So sometimes,
hold on, whoa. Back up a second. My husband was standing on top of a pull-up rig. It was really unsafe. And I'm like, please don't drop my camera.
Yeah.
Forget about, hey, please avoid falling off of that pull-up rig and fracturing your head and then being a vegetable for life. Just
no.
Don't drop the camera.
No. Because for context, my husband's very athletic. So I was like, he'll be fine. He'll catch himself on the pull-up rig coming down. The camera is not athletic and will not catch itself on the way down.
Perfect. So everything that you're describing, like you do it by accident, and I want to shine a light on it. You said that's how small I feel when I climb the rope. And what that speaks to is understanding the way that the person who you want to attract or talk to feels before they see your imagery, and then producing imagery that mirrors the way that they feel so that they can feel, once again, seen, heard, understood by whoever took that photo. And then if the caption is properly written to match the photo, they read it and they're like, what did you call my husband yesterday and ask him what all my insecurities were and then put them into a post? I think a lot of people have heard the idea of figure out who your ideal client is and then speak to them. And then they go online and they look up how to do this. And it's like, all right, how old are they? They're 19. Where do they shop? Starbucks. And they get all these different item lists. And they're like, what the fuck do I do with this? I know this person would go now I might be able to go somewhere and expect that they're going to show up eating a certain thing. I know them well enough to do that, but I have no idea what that means. It's just a bunch of information.
So I have always felt like the more specific you can get, the more clear things become in your mind. I think where people actually get very flustered is they take all these pieces of information, all the like very specific pieces of information that they know about their clients. And then they're like, but how do I generalize this so that I'm talking to everyone? Because they're trying to bring in the masses. They're trying to bring in as many leads as possible, sell as many people as possible. They're looking at their current clientele and they're like, well, yeah, but so-and-so is also 19 and they don't like Starbucks. They like Dunkin' Donuts. So like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
And I have always gone the highly, highly specific route because today, if you post something on Instagram, you don't need to talk to everyone. If you have 5 different stories of people, great. Post one today, the second one tomorrow, the third one the next day. Rotate your content that you're producing to talk to different people. And then, so if you know specific information about your clients, it is okay to get hyper specific. And it's okay that if you miss one person that you're not relating to today, because the thing is that if you get really good at rotating and you're talking to very specific people on different days, well, what's going to happen for these people who are following you over time is they're going to start recognizing that you talk to different types of people consistently. So they're going to keep coming back because they know that on, one day per week or bi-weekly, you're speaking to them. And they appreciate the specificity of you speaking to them versus being bundled up into this generalized group of people where you really aren't. If you're trying to get the masses and you're trying to be general because you're trying to speak to all of these people on the receiving end, nothing is happening emotionally for this person. Yeah, you're shooting yourself in the foot by trying to talk to everyone. So just get hyper specific.
The 2 companies who are large that I believe everyone listening to this has heard of, who I think do this the best, are Nike and Apple. And I'm choosing those 2 because Nike might run an ad with a female skier where they're talking about, being fearless and just do it. Just jump off the cliff. Just do it. I've never been on skis, never been a woman, and I don't like going on vacation to places where there's a lot of snow. That ad doesn't necessarily appeal to me. I'm not buying Nike ski gear. I'm just not. But the premise is cool. And I like the idea, okay, just do it. That's cool. And then there'll be an ad that they'll run where I'm like, that is exactly me. They serve me too. And I think that they do a really good job of eliciting emotion in their content. And then when it comes to a company like Apple, there is frankly no campaign I've ever seen. And I love marketing. I love, love, love everything about marketing. I just have never had the freedom to go all into it. Their Think Different campaign is I think my favorite marketing campaign of all time. And when they ran that campaign, it was the idea of they were tying people who thought differently about the world at the time that they lived in it, enough so that they couldn't live in the world unless it changed to the way that they thought it needed to. And then they tied Apple Computer to those people. Einstein never said buy a Mac, right? Mandela never said buy a Mac. Gandhi never said buy a Mac. But they have ads with these people in which they are associating the Mac with these people because these people thought the world needed to be different and Mac thought that the world needed to be different as it pertains to computers and personal computing. I love that ad campaign. And the only thing I love about it is that I think the world needs to be different. Right? I'm not like Mandela. I'm not like Gandhi. I'm not like Einstein. I want Active Life to be Apple, and I don't want to be Steve Jobs. So I say all that to say that what you're speaking to there, the idea of the person who is like, why would I ever spend extra money on a computer like a Mac that does 5% more things or different things or less things than this other computer, isn't the person they want to sell to. And the person they don't want to sell to won't be compelled by a series of ads saying think different.
And while you were saying that, I was thinking if anybody listening to this is like, okay, I own a business. I want to learn how to speak to my people. The thing that has helped me the most in understanding, because sometimes you don't know who your ideal client is. Sometimes you're still trying to figure it out. You've got some people in your business, but maybe you're still growing. So it's like, well, how do you figure out who they are? Listening. Part of the perks of what I used to do with my husband is my husband was the topic expert, and it was my job to understand the macro of what we were doing. So I got to stand back and just listen to everyone talk. And the people will always give you the answers. Your customers will always give you the answers. So if you just listen to conversations, if you go back and you look at all your DMs and all of your comments and you just assess them and you're like, okay, here's a pattern of questions people are asking. If you know who your customers are and you follow them on Instagram and you start to go look at their pages, you'll start to see patterns in who they are, what they like, where they go shopping, where they eat, what kind of activities they do outside of what they're doing with you. Reading emails. If people email you and they have common questions, concerns, any of that. If you have a customer service department, this is a massive one that's like not utilized effectively. Listen to what the customer service calls. What are the most common things they're getting calls about? Let's say you can't listen on the customer service. Great. Have the customer service team start putting a weekly report together of what the most common patterns were on the calls that they were getting. You can go to forums on the topics, like whatever your business is, start finding forums. I would even go as far to, if you find businesses that do something in your industry where they have communities and you have to pay to get into them, Start listening to what people are saying in the area where you are the expert. But if you're listening, that's the first step you always have to take in order to figure out, and I'll give an example of you. Every time you and I have a meeting, you always say, every single meeting we've had, there's one or two things that you say that maybe weren't even relevant to the topic that we were discussing on the meeting. They gave me an idea because I was listening. So I wrote it down. And then after we got off the meeting, I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to turn this into something. And if I didn't have that meeting with you, I wouldn't have been able to navigate that. Trade shows. Man, if you have trade shows within your industry or any large events, I would literally just go and walk around and just listen to what people are saying and write notes down on my iPhone.
I can give a tactical tip that I think would be really quick for especially gym owners and coaches to pick up on. It's common for you to want to follow accounts that have big followings, that are putting together really good content, that are curating what they're doing in a very intentional way, that are inspiring to you. Go follow people who are not doing that, who should be your member, whether they live in your town or a different town. And what you'll start to see, speaking to what you were just describing, Sarah, is what are the things that they struggle with? What are the things that they're excited about? What are they posting about, like that one time where they're like, got to spend the day with my family doing this thing? And something I've done in the past is I've actually taken a story that I saw on somebody's Instagram who was not an influencer, who did not have a photo shoot to do their thing. It was just, in one example, it was, I took the day off of work because I wanted to spend the day with my, at the time it was wife and kids, and we took them on a hike in this local park, and we ended up sitting on the edge of this lake or pond and just eating lunch. And we played games and all this stuff, and it was the best day ever. And this was just a regular person who worked in a regular company who made a post about what she would, or what he would say was his regular life. And this was an extraordinary day in that life for him. And I took his story and wrote it in our own post saying, you would love to be able to. It would feel like, and I just wrote his experience into one of our posts because that's the kind of person that we want to be a client, and that's the kind of life that he wants to live. And people responded to it extremely well. And whenever we do sales calls, the objections that people have, the things that people tell us we're inspiring about our company about to them, we write those down and use their verbatim language in content. So these are things that I think right now people could be using that they're not, that are right in their face. I'm looking at one right now, and I had somebody who said to me, I have 3 quotes here. A few days ago, someone said, I'm great at helping people and I suck at business. I wrote that down because there are a lot of people out there who think I'm great at helping people and I suck at business, who want to be better at business, and we can help them with that. Another one that says, when the doctor tells your client to avoid the gym, it's because they associate me with every other gym. They think I'm going to do the same thing every other gym is. I wrote that down. Coming up with something unique and clever in the online nutrition space is fucking impossible. I wrote that down. So I don't know if I'll use all of them, but these are things that anyone listening to this can start to do right now because they're easy, they're free, and they're everywhere. Everywhere. You just need to be looking for them.
I would say one last note too on you saying a lot of gym owners and coaches, they follow other gym owners and coaches that they aspire to be like, or that are appearing to be very successful at what they're doing. So they follow them, right? This is probably going against what I know this is going against what a lot of other marketers do. I actually never look. Very rarely do I follow or gain inspiration from other people within my industry. Mm-hmm. I think doing that is a really great way for you to copy what other people are doing, which is going to make you look exactly the same. I also think that it's potentially going to completely cut off your ability to create something that doesn't exist. Because when you're looking at what other people are doing within your industry that might be working for them, you are not listening to what's around you, whether that's other team members or your customers. I've always just been very in tune with what's actually happening right in front of me. And then I've always gained more inspiration, like from other industries. You could take an alcohol company and be like, oh, wow, I love that. How do we make it and then you can make it work for your business. So I would caution people to not necessarily follow what is happening within their industry, because that is a very clear path to never separate yourself from everyone else.
Would you give them the leeway in the short term while they figure out a cadence and they're just trying to figure out who they are and they want to put something out? Or do you think that even then it's a mistake and just carve your unique path?
I think the leeway that I would give is follow someone in your industry who is fantastic at producing educational content. I would use that as an outline in the beginning, but only that. I wouldn't use anything else. Just figure out the best people. And what you're looking for with educational content is, why is it resonating? You want to look at what's behind the curtain of what they're posting, not necessarily what they're posting. Mm. Are they posting amazing headlines? Do they have really nice graphics that are like swipe throughs? Do they have very simple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps in their copy? So education, sure, But beyond that, no.
Perfect. Sarah Weikart, where can people find you?
So Instagram would be the best place to find me. And my Instagram name is Mrs. Dues Paid.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life Podcast. Remember, if you feel inspired by our vision to humanize the healthcare industry, professionalize the fitness industry, and empower individuals to live their lives, to reclaim their physical freedom, to develop careers, helping people reclaim their physical freedom, all you need to do is head to activelifeprofessional.com, find the appropriate link that represents you, and get in contact. We'll see you there.